Have you ever watched an English movie and thought, yes, I understand everything now, but then someone suddenly asked you, okay, explain it to me in English, and you go like, actually, I know it, but I can't really explain it. If this has ever happened to you, don't worry. It doesn't mean your English is bad. It simply means you haven't learned the idea deeply enough to explain it in simple words. And today, I want to introduce you to a learning technique that can completely change the way you study or learn English. It's called the Feynman technique. And don't worry, this is not going to be a complicated lecture. In fact, I'm going to explain this technique in such a simple way that by the end of this video, you'll be able to use it today, even if you're a beginner. And I'm also going to show you how you can actually use this technique specifically for English vocabulary, grammar, speaking, and even listening. So stay with me because at the end, I'm going to give you a very simple 10-minute Feynman English practice routine that you can start using from today. Let's start with the basic question. What exactly is the Feynman technique? And the basic idea is beautifully simple. If you can't explain something simply, you probably do not understand it well enough. That's it. Imagine that you're learning something new. Maybe you're learning a concept in science. Maybe you're learning how a computer works. Maybe you're learning a grammar rule, or maybe you're learning a new English word. Normally, what do? We read about it, we watch a video, we underline something, we make notes, we think, now I understand it. But here is the problem. Recognizing something is not as same as understanding it. Let me give you a simple example. Suppose I teach you a word considerate and I tell you considerate means showing concern for other people's feeling and needs. You read it and say, "Oh yes, I understand it." But now I ask you, what does considerate mean? Explain it in your own words. You might suddenly say, considerate means, when someone think about others, but then you get stuck. That moment you get stuck is actually extremely useful because you've just discovered the gap in your understanding. That's the beauty of Feynman technique. You don't hide the gap, you find it. So the technique can be broken down into four simple steps. First, choose one concept. Don't choose 10 things. Choose one thing. For example, today I'm going to learn the difference between say and tell. Or today I'm going to understand the concept of present perfect. Or today, I'm going to learn the word considerate. One concept, that's important. Because if you try to learn 20 things at once, you may end up knowing a little about everything and being able to explain nothing. The second step is to explain it in simple language. This is the most important part. Imagine that you're explaining it to a 12-year-old child. No complicated words, no textbook language, no memorized definition, just simple language. For example, instead of saying, considerate refers to behavior demonstrating awareness of the feelings, wishes, and circumstances of people. No, that's not how I want you to explain it. Say, if you are considerate, you think about other people's feelings before you do something. Much easier. For example, if my friend is tired, I don't keep talking loudly. That's being considerate. If someone is carrying a lot of bags, I offer to help. That's being considerate. Now I understand the word. And more importantly, I can use it. The third step is to notice where you get stuck. This is where the magic happens. You're explaining something, and suddenly, nothing. You don't know what to say next. You realize, I actually don't understand this part. Excellent. That's the gap. Go back, read about it again, watch another explanation, look at the examples, ask questions, and then come back and explain it again. And the fourth step is to simplify it even more. Once you understand it, remove unnecessary complexity. Make it short, make it clearer. Use examples, use comparisons, use everyday situations, and finally try saying it without looking at your notes. That's the complete process. Learn, explain, find the gap, return, and simplify. So, if you're a beginner and you come from a Hindi medium background, you might have faced this problem. English grammar looks really complicated, and sometimes you just don't know where to start. So, I want to show you this book, General English by Agarwal Exam Card. What I like about this book is it is bilingual. So, if you're more comfortable understanding concepts in Hindi, you can learn all the grammar rules with Hindi and English explanations. It covers everything from basic grammar concepts like articles, tenses, vocabularies, synonyms, idioms, one word substitutions, and exam related questions as well. And if you're preparing for exams like NDA, CDS, State PCS, UPSC, teaching related exams, this can be a useful resource. And if you're someone who keeps saying, मुझे समझ नहीं आता कहाँ से शुरू करूँ, ग्रामर कहाँ से पढूँ, you can definitely have a look at this book. I'll put the details in the description box below. You can go and purchase this book. Thank you so much for watching. Happy learning. Now you might be thinking, okay, Sunita, this sounds useful for learning difficult subjects. But how does this help me improve my English? A lot. In fact, I think English learners can use this technique in a very practical way because one of the biggest problems English learners face is this. We consume a lot of English, but we don't produce enough English. We watch, we listen, we read, we save posts on Instagram, we highlight sentences, we make vocabulary lists, but then when it's time to speak, nothing comes out naturally. Why? Because learning English is not only about recognizing English, you need to be able to retrieve it, organize it, produce it, and the Feynman technique forces you to produce. Let me show you. Let's say today you've learned the word overwhelmed. You look it up. The dictionary says something like overwhelmed means feeling unable to cope with the situation because there is too much to deal with. Okay, you understand the definition. But now close the dictionary. Imagine I'm asking you, what does overwhelmed mean? Don't give me the dictionary definition. Explain it like you're talking to a friend. You could say, when you have too many things to do and you feel like you can't handle everything, you feel overwhelmed. Good. Now give me an example. I had three deadlines, my children needed my attention, and I had so many messages to reply to, I felt completely overwhelmed. Now make it personal. I sometimes feel overwhelmed when I have too many things on my plate. Now you've gone from knowing the word, understanding the word, and using the word. There is a huge difference. And here is another important point. Don't just explain the word once. Try explaining it tomorrow and then again after a few days. Because if you can retrieve it without looking at the definition, the word is becoming part of your active vocabulary. This technique is especially useful for expressions as well. Suppose you come across, it's not my cup of tea. You understand the words tea, cup, my. But does it mean that someone doesn't like tea? No. So explain it simply. If something is not your cup of tea, it means I don't particularly enjoy it or it's not something I like. For example, I'm not really into horror movies. They're not my cup of tea. Now make it personal. Waking up early is really not my cup of tea. Now imagine you're explaining this expression to one of your friends who has never heard it before. If you can explain what it means, when we use it, and give an example, you've actually learned it. Now, I want you to try something. I'm going to give you a very simple topic. Why do people procrastinate? Don't search for the answer. Don't prepare, just talk randomly. Imagine you're explaining this to a 12-year-old. You might say, people procrastinate when they keep delaying something they need to do. For example, suppose I have an important assignment. I know I have to finish it, but instead of starting, I check my phone. Then I watch one video and then another video, and I tell myself I'll start in 10 minutes. And suddenly, 2 hours have passed. So, procrastination is basically when you delay something even though you know you should do it. You are not trying to use difficult vocabulary, you are trying to communicate the idea clearly. And that is exactly the kind of speaking practice English learners needs. And this brings me to something I really want you to remember. When you're learning English, don't always try to sound intelligent. Try to sound clear. These are two different things. Sometimes learners think if I use difficult vocabulary, people will think my English is good. Not necessarily. A person who can explain a complicated idea using simple English often sounds much more confident than someone who uses 10 complicated words but can't communicate the actual idea. So, when you practice the Feynman technique, don't ask, how can I use impressive English? Ask, how can I make the idea easy to understand? That's a much better question. Now, let's actually do one together. I'm going to give you a concept being considerate. You might have heard of this before, but I don't want you to give me a dictionary definition. Imagine that you're explaining it to a child. What does it mean to be considerate? Think about it. Here is my simple explanation. Being considerate means thinking about other people's feelings and needs before you act. For example, if your roommate is sleeping, you don't play loud music. You're being considerate. If your friend is having a difficult day, you don't make fun of them. You're being considerate. You can be considerate and still have boundaries. You can be considerate without constantly seeking someone's approval. That's another concept. And now I can explain it simply. That means I have understood it better. Here is something you can actually do if you're watching English learning videos on YouTube. Don't just watch a 20-minute video from beginning to end. Instead, watch a small section, maybe 5 minutes, then stop. Ask yourself, what did I just learn? Now explain it aloud. Don't look at your notes. Don't replay the video. Just explain it. If you can't, go back. Watch that section again. Then explain it again. This changes passive watching into active learning. You don't have to do this with every single video you watch. Even doing it with one useful idea from a video can make a big difference. The same thing works with podcast, interviews, movies, and shows. Suppose you hear an interesting sentence. I don't want to take it for granted, let's say. Pause. Ask yourself, what does take something for granted mean? Explain it in your own word. It means not appreciating something because you assume it will be there for you always. Now make your own examples. I don't want to take my family for granted. Another one, we often take good health for granted. Now you've learned an expression in context and you've produced your own sentences. That's much more powerful than simply saving the sentence in your phone. Because let's be honest, most of us have hundreds of saved English posts, thousands of screenshots, vocabulary list, videos saved for later, and then we never use them. So instead of asking how much English content I have consumed, ask how much English can I actually explain and use. That's a better measure. Please don't turn the Feynman technique into another thing you have to do perfectly. You don't need beautiful notes. You don't need a special notebook. You don't need an expensive course. You don't need to spend 2 hours preparing. You can literally do it with your phone. Choose one word, one expression, one grammar point, one topic, and explain it for 2 or 3 minutes. That's enough. And if your English is broken, that's okay. If you make mistakes, that's okay. Actually, the mistakes can help you because when you're speaking and you suddenly realize, wait, I don't know how to say this, that's useful information. You've found something to learn. So let me give you a routine you can actually follow. You only need 10 minutes. For the first 1 or 2 minutes, choose one thing. For example, today I'm learning the phrase make up my mind, or today I'm learning the difference between borrow and lend, or today I'm learning how to use the present perfect tense. One thing, that's it. Then spend 2 minutes learning it. Look at the example, listen to the pronunciation, understand the meaning, don't rush. Then spend 3 minutes explaining it aloud. Close everything. Now imagine you're teaching a 12-year-old. Explain, what does it mean? When do we actually use it? What is an example? Can I make my own sentence? Then spend 1 minute finding the gap. Where did you get stuck? Maybe you didn't know the exact meaning. Maybe you couldn't make an example. Maybe you didn't know which preposition to use. You understood it, but you couldn't explain it in English. That's your gap. Spend the next minute relearning that part. Go back and fix that one gap. And then spend the final minute explaining it again. This time, make it simpler. And that's it, 10 minutes. You don't need to wait for the perfect time. You can do it in the morning. You can do it before bed. You can even do it while you're walking. And if you want to make this a habit, here's a little challenge for you. Try this for 7 days. On day one, learn one vocabulary word and explain it. On day two, learn one English expression and explain it. On day three, choose one grammar point and explain it. On day four, watch a short English video and explain what you have learned. Day five, listen to a podcast or interview, choose one interesting idea and explain it. Day six, choose a topic from your everyday life. For example, why do I like traveling? Why is sleep important? Why do people procrastinate? Why do we need friends? And explain it in English. On day seven, choose anything you've learned during the week. Now explain it without looking at anything. Here is the important part. Record yourself. You don't have to post the recording. You just record it for yourself. Then listen to yourself. You'll probably notice things like, oh, I repeated that word 5 times. I keep saying actually, actually. I couldn't find the right word there. I made a grammar mistake. Perfect. Now you know exactly what you need to work on. But honestly, I think the biggest benefit of this technique goes beyond vocabulary and grammar. It changes your relationship with learning. Instead of saying, I don't know English, you start asking, what exactly don't I know? Maybe you understand the sentence, but you can't produce it. Maybe you know the word, but you can't use it naturally. Maybe you understand the grammar rule, but you can't apply it while speaking. Maybe you can understand native speakers, but you can't respond quickly. These are not signs that you are hopeless at English. They are simply gaps. And once you identify a gap, you can work on it. So, next time you're learning English, try changing one thing. Instead of read, underline, forget, try learn, close the book, explain, find the gap, relearn, and explain again. Instead of watching a video and thinking, wow, that was useful, stop and ask, what exactly did I learn? Instead of saving an interesting expression, ask, can I use this expression in 3 sentences right away? Instead of memorizing a grammar rule, ask, can I explain this rule to someone who knows nothing about grammar? If you can, you're not just memorizing anymore, you're learning. And that's the Feynman technique. It's simple, but don't underestimate simple techniques. Sometimes we think effective learning has to be complicated. We need a special app, a special notebook, a special course, a complicated study timetable. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply close the book and ask yourself, okay, now explain what you have just learned. And if you can't, don't feel bad. Don't say my English is terrible. Don't give up. Just say, okay, I found the gap, and go back and learn that part. Then try again. Because every time you find a gap and fill it, you're moving forward. And if you're learning English, I really want you to start using this technique with English you encounter every day. A word, a phrase, a grammar rule, a conversation, a podcast, a movie. It could be anything. Learn it, explain it, simplify it, and use it. And then repeat. If you found this video useful, don't just click away. Before you leave, tell me in the comments what is one English concept, word, expression that you would like to explain using the Feynman technique. Write it in the comments. And if you enjoyed this kind of practical English learning video, make sure you subscribe to Sunita's English Adventure because we are not just learning English, we're learning how to actually use it. I'll see you in the next adventure. Until then, keep learning, keep speaking, and keep exploring. Bye.